Hi, this is Arjun here. I'm the CEO of Edge Networks, and what we're going to demonstrate to you today is HIREalchemy.com, our talent acquisition platform, our suite of products that will help you on your talent acquisition requirements. Now, one of the things that you see here is a dashboard, and this dashboard represents what a recruiter looks at. It has different things on it, which is the ongoing projects that the recruiter is working on, the monthly requirements that the recruiter works on, essentially what the progress of the recruiter as you go forward is, right? You will see at the bottom the number of resumes that the recruiter has viewed, shortlisted, similar to a mini ATS. You'll see a few tabs that will explain a little more about what the recruiter's function is on a day-to-day basis. What I'm also going to do now is jump into projects and positions, which helps you understand exactly what the front view is of the recruiter, where you can see different projects that the person is working on. And essentially, to get down to the technology that really makes us kick, we're going to be looking at how to create a position on the top right hand corner. We're going to click on create position, and we're going to start with a very simple user interface that allows you to put in a position code, which here we're going to do something arbitrary. Here you're going to put in a real title. We're going to use front-end developer, right? And pick that up there. We're going to use sandbox because this is a sample, it's a test, right? So we're going to use 2 to 6 years of experience, right? And we're going to pick a start date. We'll use the 10th of this month as a start date. And we'll use the 31st of this month as the requirement end date. We'll put in 2 openings that exist. Salary is an optional field. We'll put Bangalore as the location, and we're going to enter a job description in the dialog box here, right? Now, once you see the job description, what you're going to get is design and develop front-end code for a world-class user experience, both on native apps and browsers. Work with a user experience designer to implement a user interface, high in usability and conversion. Work with JavaScript, PhoneGap, Angular, CSS, HTML. Work in an agile development team of 8 focusing on rebuilding their app in PhoneGap. Cross-functional team including design, UX, QA, and development. So as the written word would go, and as a job description would be posted on a site, or a career site, or Naukri.com, you'd have a job description posted here in natural language. Now, here's where the technology kicks in when we analyze for skills. What it's doing here right now is looking at the text and starting to read the text and using natural language processing algorithms that are built in-house, and essentially using a skill repository, a very powerful set of taxonomically structured skills that allow us to understand what the value of one skill to another is in the written text. So what I'm going to do now is hand it over to our CTO Priyadarshi Lahari, who's going to run you through exactly how these skills have been inferred.
Right. So when we looked at the job description, we saw it was for a front-end developer who would be liaising with the application development team and would be working on mobile native apps as well as a web app, right? So if we look at the first skill that's been picked up by the system or a function, it's the front-end developer, which has taken precedence because that's what he's being hired for and that's what he'll be doing. The second skill that has come up as the most important in the mix is JavaScript. Now, the front-end developer, as we all know, would be working on JavaScript as his primary language of choice because that's what all modern web interfaces today are written in. The next skill that we have picked up is Angular. Now, when he is going ahead and using JavaScript to coordinate with the backend. Since this is a web app, data will flow in from the backend to the front end, which has to be arranged in a proper framework. And Angular is the choice for that. So the system understands that JavaScript is the language of choice, and Angular is the framework of choice. So these two have taken a lot of precedence. Right after that, it's CSS and HTML because these are again very basic building blocks to creating user interfaces. CSS defines the style and colors, and HTML is the code that you write HTML pages out in, which display in the browser. Now, again, if we remember the job description, it talks about native apps. So we can assume that JavaScript will be used to write the app, whereas PhoneGap is the tool of choice to convert it to a native environment. That's why the next choice is obviously PhoneGap, where it said that PhoneGap takes precedence again since native conversion is required. Right after that, a lot of common skills and basic softer skills have also been taken into account by the system, saying that UX is very necessary. He needs to have proper understanding of browsers because he needs to talk about cross browser compatibility. User experience, he needs to understand how user experience and usability works. Since he'll be working with a team, he needs to know how agile web development works, how QA processes work, how interfaces work, and how functional teams work. So the system goes ahead and looks at every functional and technical aspect and automatically ranks skills in order of precedence. Now, if we scroll up, we'll see that there's another tab that the system has thrown up here, which we call the inferred skills tab. Now, the system understands that from the job description, whatever you have written out, it's gone ahead and picked out skills from that and given it logical scoring, saying this is important, this is a little lesser important. But what it's also done is it's giving you a set of skills here and telling you that, okay, you have not mentioned all of these, but we think that having these skills would make the person a better fit for the job. So if you look at it, the system has picked out web applications, CVS, sitemaps. Sitemaps are again very integral, which allow search engines to index a site properly. IIS is a web server, so since he will have to go ahead and coordinate with the backend, Spring framework has been picked up. ASP.NET J2E, again backend frameworks. Cross-browser compatibility, as I had mentioned before. Web 2.0 as a concept, front-end development. Backbone JS is another Angular. So you see that the entire gamut of skills has been picked up by the system. Now, for an experienced recruiter, he could actually go ahead and change the importance of the skills if he wishes to. He can take out certain skills if he thinks it's not important. For example, I could just take QA out. I could also add a skill that I remember about later if it has not been taken into account. So that is entirely possible.
So the next step that we would do, and the logical step here, is to essentially sort of preview the results. When you're going through the analysis, you want to look at exactly what you're going to get as a source, right? The number of resumes that are going to come out of this. And what the system is doing now is actually going to the databases that we're connected to and firing a query out of these databases to sort of understand how many resumes exist in Monster, Shine, or Times jobs, and give you a sort of even your internal database, if you have a pool of resumes there, what are the specific candidates that are most suited to this particular position. And you can select a source if you want, right? And or you can sort of create the position and go on from there. I now you've seen that there are 97,153 resumes in Shine.com, 86,000 in Times Jobs, and you have an internal pool which we sort of have a database of resumes that are internal to this where 43 relevant resumes exist, right? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of choose Shine.com here and uncheck all the internal resumes, so we're not going to go through that, right? And now going to create position, score existing candidates. We want them to be scored, right? We want to create position and auto source. So what it's doing right now is creating the position and auto sourcing the resumes. So this essentially is our USP, where we're sort of looking at how many candidates are going to come out, and once we sort of just hit the refresh button on the auto source, we'll see it loading data, which allows us to understand the number of resumes that come out which are relevant. And voila, you have Pushpalata here who is 100%, Rajashekar who's 100%. So what we're going to do is on the right hand side you have the position description right there. You want to refer to that. You have the primary skills. You want to see the expanded version of that. You have the inferred skills. And obviously you have different filters on the left hand side which say the freshness of the resume if you need to see that. You want to have an interest check mail to be sent out to specific people. You have a filter set there. You have a location filter, so you have Bangalore 23 resumes, so you can actually filter by that. University and college, you can see the different colleges that have been actually highlighted here. You can search by college, by company name, source, and CTC, right? So we've chosen Shine, so you've got all the resumes from Shine right there. So I'm going to pick, Rajshekar right there and see whether they're good enough. And I'll leave it up to Priyo, who understands this position really well because he has a lot of front end developers in his team, to analyze whether Rajshekar is a good fit.
So what we're looking at right now is the highlight tab. So what the system does automatically is it looks at the person's resume and goes ahead and distills pieces of important information out and presents it back to you. So you can have a good look at a real snapshot of the resume without going through it in its entirety. So if you look at his main skills, that's graphics design, website designing, HTML5, user experience, Twitter Bootstrap, which is again front-end framework, Dreamweaver, Photoshop, front-end design, jQuery. So he's worked on JavaScript as well. He has about 5.3 years of experience. He's worked with HTML templates, visual designs. He has various domain information like banking and finance. So you know that this is a good resume, right? Now, if you look at the right side, we run a few business rules. We check for certain things like whether this resume has an education gap in it. So if he's completed 15 years of education completely, now we see that education gap cannot be identified in this. This is a complete resume. There are grammatical errors, but it is under the permissible limit. So there was about 9% grammatical errors in the entire text. He does not conform to any blacklisted universities, or he's not part of any blacklisted companies as well. So you know that this guy is probably a safe candidate that you can consider for recruitment. Now, what is shown here is what are the primary skills that we asked for, what have matched. So the ones in green are what matched, and the ones in red are what did not match explicitly. What are the inferred skills that the system picked up that matched, and what are those that didn't, right? At the top you can see his details like his location, what is the company that he's working for right now, what is his institute. And what you see here is an intelligent learning path. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to tell you that for the skills that didn't match, what are the books that he could read, or what are the courses that he could potentially do to come up to that level so that that skill gap disappears, and what is the plan for doing so. So he can go through these books and he can pursue them in his own time to get to that level.
So one of the things I wanted to add is that the intelligent learning path demonstration, which is really going to be effective, one is when you're trying to engage candidates and get them inside, you're already telling them what to learn before they come in. So the cycle of 3 months, 90 days is used effectively when you're getting a candidate to come in, right? That's one engagement model. The other is to transform talent when they come in. We have obviously useful techniques to do it. We're connected into Coursera, Udacity, Udemy, Canvas, and Google Books. This allows us to be a lot more nimble and relevant in terms of today's kind of quality of courses, that allows us to start demonstrating a greater value when you're talking about talent acquisition and the right kind of talent coming in for a particular job. The highlight that I wanted to make here, which Priyo went through, is that a lot of the skills that were primary skills were not matched, right? Explicitly is what he said. And the reason that we've still given the person 100% is you might not find a textual match for these skills within the system, but the system is intelligent enough to understand that the value of the skills that have been recognized, and a lot of the language that has been used in the resume, which you can see the actual resume when you click on it, allows you to make the judgment that a smart recruiter would do that this person is really 100% fit for the job in question, right? So that is adaptive scoring. So there are a lot of scoring techniques that we have based on the skill repository that Priyo can highlight better.
So I'll just take a single very important example. If you look at it, PhoneGap, which was a tool to convert two native apps, has not matched, right? Yet we have given him 100%. If you look at the resume in his front end code, you will see that in the front end code and the framework that he'll use, he's already used jQuery mobile. And if I look at the highlights as well, you would see that jQuery has been used and Bootstrap has been used, which is used for responsive mobile design as well, right? So having PhoneGap is like just knowing how to execute a software to convert JavaScript to a native app which can be learned in probably 2 hours. So there's no reason for scoring a person less when he has all the abilities to already do what is needed in the job at hand.
So that kind of gives you a gist of the fact that we have the ability to sort of drive back a phenomenal value in the form of auto sourcing, where we can use multiple sources to fire queries to, since we can read a job description, analyze it basis skills, competencies, functions, abilities, traits of the individual, or the individual is required to have when they're performing the job. Take that form a very you know important facet of it is a good query, because a lot of the queries, 60% of the queries that are written out to job boards, the Boolean queries seem to be wrong. So when you're writing a query, it's wrong. You download resumes, you're going to go through wrong resumes, and then you're going to have technical interviews for the wrong type of candidates. That is eliminated through this process, and this is totally automatic. You're driving an automated workflow that allows you to download resumes, read those resumes, score and stack rank them in the space of seconds, right? And you have your recruiter a lot more productive, shortlisting resumes which are scored and stack ranked, running interest checks on them so that you can find out. So your screening function is also performed through this tool, moving them through stages of shortlist, screen, interviewed, selected, or rejected. So the system is also learning. To give you an insight, we have gone through 14 million resumes. We've gone through about 800,000 job descriptions just on performing transactions across the function. The system itself has learned close to about 20 million resumes through it, probably close to about 5 million job descriptions from a learning mechanism perspective. So we understand, the value of one skill to another, from the IT industry, from energy and utilities, from healthcare. Various taxonomical structures have been built as islands across what we call the edge graph, which is really the neural network that powers the natural language processing algorithms, perform this wonderful function of auto sourcing that gives us great value when we're driving it for the talent acquisition suite of functions. Thank you.